Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 19 of Bookmas. Today's like a Goodreads inspired little sit down chat. I saw a while ago that Goodreads released their members' top books of the past 5 years, and I thought it'd be fun to go through those. I think it was 60 books and see which ones I've read and which ones I haven't, and if there's enough on there that I haven't read that's interesting to me, then maybe I'll do like a vlog next year where I try to read some of those to knock more off my list. But first I wanted to go through the Goodreads favorites of 2024 and see which of those I've read. I did vote in these, but there were some categories that I hadn't read any of the books, so I did skip them because I just didn't think it was fair to vote if I haven't read any of the books. But we'll just go through those really quick, and I'll put screenshots up of everything that I'm talking about. But so for audiobook, Emily Henry's Funny Story one. I did not listen to that audiobook, but I did read that book. Romantasy winner was House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. Loved that book. Fiction winner was The Wedding People. I almost picked that for my book of the month. I've seen a bunch of people reading it, but I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. But it must have been good if like that was the one that was voted number one. So maybe I'll have to give that one a try next year. Mystery and thriller winner was The God of the Woods, which was a book that I almost picked up a few times in Barnes & Noble, so maybe I will also get that one to read next year. Maybe I'll just do a vlog that's me reading the Goodreads 2024 Choice Awards winners that I haven't read. Historical fiction winner was The Women by Kristen Hanna. I actually have that right here. I have not read it, but it's on the 2025 TBR, so it will be getting read next year regardless. History and biography winner was The Bookshop, The History of the American Bookstore. Probably won't read that, to be completely honest. I'm not going to push myself to read too many nonfiction. Like this year I had a goal of 10 and I think I'm going to be like 8 or 9, which is fine. But I don't enjoy those that much. Like I probably will read them. Like Mark Hoppus's book is coming out, which I've talked about that I do plan on reading, and it is in my 25 for 25. But I'm not going to like force myself to read 10 or whatever. If there's one that's interesting to me, I will read it, but I'm not putting that on a goal anymore because I just felt like I was forcing myself to read them by the end of the year. Young adult fiction winner is Heartstopper Volume 5. I don't know that I will ever read those. They are like graphic novels, so they'd be really quick reads, but they've never really caught my attention enough that I want to go buy them and try them, but who knows? You never know. Young adult fantasy winner was Ruthless Spouse by Rebecca Ross, which is the second in the Letters of Enchantment, I want to say. I did love that book too. That was really good. I enjoyed the war aspect of that. It was a little bit more fantasy heavy than romance heavy, so I did enjoy that. Fantasy winner was TJ Klune, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I've never read a TJ Klune book. Maybe I'll venture down that road sometime. We'll see. I'm not making any promises. I think that's like in that House on the Cerulean Sea series though, so I don't think I can just read that one, but I'm not sure. Romance winner was Funny Story by Emily Henry, so she won too, which is awesome. I loved that book. That probably is my favorite Emily Henry book. I read them all this year, but I don't have one that I don't know what my ranking would be. I think that one's number one, but I don't know what the rest of them would be. Maybe at some point I'll have to kind of go back and figure that out. Science fiction winner was The Ministry of Time. That's another book I've had my eye on, so that's one that I also could end up picking up next year and reading. The horror winner was Stephen King's You Like It Darker, which also is ironically right next to me. So that's 2 books that I will probably be reading very early into the year next year, which is weird that one won because it's not a novel. It's an anthology of stories. So that's kind of interesting. The nonfiction winner was The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. That's actually quite interesting. See, that's something that I could see myself picking up because I'm an anxious person and it'd be interesting to see. And I always joke about the games and stuff that we played, like, as children in the 90s, like Perfection, where like if you didn't put the pieces in the spots within the time frame, which I think was a minute. I looked this up the other day because I was talking to people at work about it. It blew up in your face. And then when you played Operation, if you hit the side, like it buzzed and vibrated and scared the crap out of me. So I don't know why we thought it was cool to play like such anxiety inducing games, but then they wonder why my entire generation is a bunch of anxious people with mental illness. Debut novel winner was How to End a Love Story by Yuling Kwong. I did read that as well. I enjoyed that. It was not my favorite book. It was a very different type of a romance, I'd say. I don't feel like I felt the connection between the characters all that much, but the story itself was very fascinating. Memoir and autobiography was The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. I don't know that I'd read that. I like Gilmore Girls, but not that much. And that's it. So I've read a decent amount of them, and there are enough on here I think that I'm interested in that I don't own that maybe I can do a little bit of a reading vlog at some point next year once I've picked up a few of these. I'm trying to not buy too many books at the beginning of the year because I have quite a few on my TBR. All right, so now moving on to the Goodreads members' top books of the past 5 years. They did them in increments of 10, it looks like. So from 51 to 60, I have read Twisted Games by Anna Huang, Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, so 3. And then The Women by Kristen Hanna is 51, and I will be reading that. So the rest of them on there, I don't know if any of those, maybe Every Summer After. I did read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I may give one of those other ones of hers a try. I did not like Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle, so I don't know that I would read it in 5 years. I've heard better things about that one, but I just really didn't enjoy that book, so I'm not sure that I will read another one by her. And the other ones I don't know enough about to, the like last 4, I don't know enough to make a guess if I'll ever read those. So 3 out of 10 on that one. 41 through 50, I've read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, None of This Is True by Lisa Joel, The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden, Haunting Adeline, I DNF'd. I did try to read that. I got about 35% of the way through that book and DNF'd it. Specifically at a certain part, so. And then I read The Wicked King by Holly Black and Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. So that is 7 out of 10 and DNF'd 1. I do want to read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I do think that I may enjoy that. I'm going to try to get into the Red Rising series this year, and that is sci-fi, and so is Project Hail Mary. So we'll see how I take to the Red Rising series, and maybe I will expand my genre into like sci-fi. That is a goal for this year, is to kind of explore different genres. I primarily read thriller, romance, and fantasy. I want to try more like literary fiction, historical fiction, sci-fi, those kind of things, contemporary fiction, stuff like that. 31 through 40. The Four Winds I own, but I have not read. Anxious People I own, have not read. Yellowface I've read. The Perfect Marriage I've read. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes I read actually quite recently. And Icebreaker by Hannah Grace I've read as well. So 1, 4 on this one. The Spanish Love Deception is interesting to me. I do think I would read that at some point or listen to the audiobook. I listened to The American Roommate Experiment, which is the book that comes after that, and I enjoyed that story. But I haven't really dove into any more Elena Armas. I would. I enjoyed The American Roommate Experiment audiobook enough that there is a possibility that eventually I will venture more into some more of her books. The Four Winds and Anxious People I will obviously be trying to read this year. And the other ones, again, there's that House in the Cerulean Sea. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe one day. 21 through 30. The Inheritance Games, Twisted Love, The Honeymooners, House of Earth and Blood, Things We Never Got Over, Iron Flame, I'm Glad My Mom Died, and Happy Place. So I've read 8 out of 10 of those. I do not know. I do want to read some Jennifer L. Armentrout. I haven't really gotten too into her books yet. I read a romance by her, but I've never read any of her fantasy books. I do want to read them, but I have to kind of look into that and do some research and figure out where to start, because I think a lot of her series are connected and there may be a certain way to read them. I don't know 100%. If you know, let me know in the comments like what you recommend the best place to start in her fantasy novels is, and I'll look into maybe doing that once I finish up a few other series that I'm in the middle of. And I do not know anything about The Vanishing Half, so can't say anything about that one. 11 through 20, I have read The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, Tomorrow and Tomorrow Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and Beach Read by Emily Henry. That was a good one. I read 9 out of 10 of those. And I don't know that I'll ever read Red, White, and Boyle Blue. I have fears about that one just because it's so hyped. I'll feel like I have to like it, I think. Maybe one day when like the hype's kind of died down a little bit, I may read it and maybe eventually watch the little movie thing they did on Netflix, but I don't know, it's just so hyped, and I have like expectations about it, so I don't know that it's something that I want to dive into right now, but never say never. And then number 1 through 10, People We Meet on Vacation, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, The Guest List, It Starts With Us, The Love Hypothesis, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Daisy Jones and the Six, Fourth Wing, and The Silent Patient. So I've only not read one book on here, and it is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And I'm very interested in that book. I think I would like that. So that might be one that I add to my wish list for next year, because I could read that and a few of the other ones that are maybe towards the higher end of the scale. So let's see how many that ends up being. So I have read 40 out of 6 of those. That's pretty good. That's like 60-some%. I'll take it. And I do have some other ones like on my TBR, obviously, that I do plan on reading. So I have those 2 Kristen Hanna books. I have the Frederick Bachman book. And there are a few other ones in there that I am interested in. So maybe I'll eventually raise that percentage up. But I mean, I agree with those. A lot of those books on there are ones that I definitely think have been in my top reads from the past few years. Some yes, some no, I'd say. Because like The Silent Patient, I really enjoyed that book. I don't know that I would have put it at like number 1 on top books of the past 5 years. But Fourth Wing being number 3 makes sense. There was a lot of hype. And The Silent Patient did have its moment too. Daisy Jones and the Six, there was a lot of hype. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue being number 5. I didn't love that book. And I think that's one that suffered from me having high expectations going into it because it was so hyped. Or I just didn't vibe with V.E. Schwab's writing, which I may think is more of the culprit because I tried to read the first book in the Darker Shades of Magic series and I ended up soft DNFing it, I'd say. I just couldn't get into it. But I wouldn't say I'll never try again. But it makes me question whether it's her writing or if it was just the story. And some of these other ones on the top, like The Guest List by Lucy Foley, to this day is one of my favorite and probably one of my most recommended thriller books of all time. That book is just, and hers are all very similar. Lucy Foley writes a certain type of a thriller. They all are, I want to say like, they call them like locked room-esque stories, but a little bit bigger than that. So it's usually an event happens in this one place and there's like all these different storylines that you're following of all the different people that are in that area. And it's usually a very quick timeline, like a few days that the story's going over and somebody dies and you're trying to figure out who did it between like amongst the people that are stuck there. And then, they're all kind of connected in a way that you're not expecting. So The Guest List was about a wedding on this secluded island and somebody ends up dying and they're obviously your suspects are the people that are on the island and questioning like who was invited to the wedding and you follow all these different guests and like the groom and like I think the maid of honor or maybe the best man. I forget all the people in it because it's been a while. I want to reread that, but my mother has had it for like the past year and a half. I finally got it back. She loved it. So there's that. The Hunting Party's the same way. It was like a cabin in the woods. The Paris Apartment was this like apartment building in Paris, same kind of situation. And then The Midnight Feast was actually this small town, but specifically like a resort in a small town. So they all have like the same kind of like premise, but the stories are in and of themselves different. And the way that she connects all the characters is very interesting. But anyway, that was a long tangent for me to say that The Guest List is one of my most recommended thriller books, I think, to my friends. There's so many people that I have been like, please read this book. And quite a few of them I've actually got to read it. So love that one. So I do agree with that being in the top 10. But other than that, let me know how many of those you've read in the comments. Let me know what your number is. Who cares what it is? But I'm just fascinated to see like if those are really some of the most commonly read books. Obviously, I don't know how they did it ratings or if it was like the most ratings or the highest rating based on how many ratings, which doesn't make sense because I think The Women is actually very highly rated and it was in like the 51 to 60 range, but it could be the number of ratings. I don't know, but it's still kind of fascinating. I'm surprised at how many I've read on there, but the internet is a very influential place. And I think a lot of those are books that all had their moment on social media in some way, shape or form, whether it be BookTube or Book Talk or Instagram, whatever. They all kind of are higher. Most of them. There were some on there that I'd obviously never heard of, but I think most of them had their moment on the internet, and that obviously is going to drive people to read it because, you know, people get FOMO. They want to know what everyone's reading, which is great. But that was interesting. That was fun. I think that's all for today. So like I said, let me know how many off that list you have read in the comments, maybe some of your favorites. Thank you so much if you've made it this far in the video, and I hope to see you all tomorrow for day 20 of Bookmas.